Hi students, this is my attempt. This thing has failed like 5 times to go over this DBQ. Now listen, those of you got 180 out of 180, 100%, you don't need to do this. You don't need to take any notes, but I want you to watch this because I have some very practical stuff to show you here. For those of you who want your grade changed to 180, all you got to do is write down what I tell you to write down. And the first thing I want you to write down is this rubric. Copy it down, pause the video and copy it down. Okay, now I'm going to go over this. So here's the rubric. We're not going to mess with the one document DBQ anymore. I was just trying to keep you guys on point for the last 6 or 7 weeks. I've been trying to keep you guys focused on learning AP World History. And for the most of you, that seems to have worked. And also to keep you practiced in doing DBQs a little bit at a time. But we're done with that. Now the only thing we're doing is we're going back to this 9-point rubric. It's a 10-point rubric, but we're not going to worry about unicorns. Somebody did email me about that, and I will get them some information. So let's go over this thing here. All right, the introduction has to have your contextualization and your thesis. Your contextualization needs to be 3 to 5 sentences long, and most of you are doing very good on this. A lot of you talked about Columbus and explorers. The best thing to have done on this essay would have been to talk about the religion that was there before. What was there before? Polytheism and human sacrifice. A lot of you mentioned the Aztecs, the Inca, and the Maya, and you could have thrown in Quetzalcoatl. I'd be careful with Huitzilopochtli, but whatever, Hoochie Poochie, whatever. But most of you did that. I'm very thankful you're doing that now. Next Thursday, just so you know, my plan is to have a chart for you. I got one for Euro. I'm planning to have a chart with every region of the world in every time period and what was going on. It's social, political, economic. I'm going to use my spectra categories. I found one somebody else had done in Euro. I don't want to spend all this time on it myself, but if somebody else doesn't do it, I will do it for you. My rule is as long as I'm healthy and I'm here, I'll do what I can. Now, I have 130 macro kids testing next Thursday. I have 30 kids in my AP World class. I have 100 more in the other class. I have 30 in this class, and only about 20 of you are working. So I just want you to know, even though there's so few of you, I'm going to be committed to doing this. And so if I can't find one of these, I'll write it myself. So my intention is to give you a lot of help on contextualization. All right. So I think once I do this chart, if you guys can, read the time period and pick the right category, you'll be okay. Most of you, I'm very happy to say, are doing ugly theses, and they're very good. Most of the kids, I just graded these essays. Most of you got the thesis point. So most of you have 2 points. Okay, now, describes 2 docs. This is the easiest thing on the exam. If you just talk about 2 documents and you don't just quote, like you don't just say document 3 and just put a quote mark and write the whole document. As long as you're analyzing and talking about these docs, you should get that 1 point. So now you're up to 3. Most of you, and I am happy to see this. Most of you are using topic sentences. You have no idea how many kids do not know how to do that. One of my Euro kids just sent me one yesterday. And I don't use profanity, but I sure had some words pop into my head when I saw it. The AP European College Board people released 2 examples, and they specifically said kids who just start a paragraph by talking about a document will not get the point. But most of you are using topic sentences and you're arguing 2 documents pretty well. So here's my thought. That now smart people are saying they think you need to get 6 points out of this to get a 3. In my experience, most kids on a DBQ either get 2 or 3 points. So my theory is that probably you're going to get to pass with 5. If you just think about what we just talked about, contextualization, which I'm going to help you with, thesis, most of you are doing okay. Describing, everyone's getting that point. And most of you are arguing these 2 points. Most of you should be pretty good for a 5 if you just hang on. Now, they may set the standard at 6 or 7. So let's go on. To get that, you need to do sourcing, and a lot of you are doing it right. Some of you are still not doing it 100% right. Somebody did like 6 sources. No, they couldn't have done 6. There's only 5 documents. Somebody did 4 or 5 sourcings on that last one. And I wrote them a note and I said, these are kind of weak, but you did so many, I'm happy. That's the way to do it. Do one on every single document. And then outside evidence is kind of tough. Some of you will notice that I gave you credit for it just for trying, but they may not do that. But anyway, you should all be able to get these 7 points, okay? And nobody thinks that you're going to need 8 points to get a 3. I mean, if you can't get a 3 or probably a 4 with 7 points, I don't know what they're thinking. Okay. Keep in mind, large numbers of kids around the United States aren't trying at all. If you stay in the try category, you should wind up in the do category. All right. Now, and if I have time in this video, in the very last couple of minutes, I'm going to go back and show you, because I expect most of you to run out of time on this DBQ, and there's a way to pass it. I'm going to show you how to get 7 points just out of the first 2 paragraphs, okay? All right, now moving on. Here is this thing I sent you. I asked you to print it, but when I printed it, it didn't come out looking right. There's your introduction. I got some notes here. First off, don't ever send me a DBQ chart again. I'm good with you doing it on a piece of scratch paper and taking notes. That's fine. Don't send it to me. Some of you are sending it to me at the top of your paper. That's automatically, you're not going to get your thesis point, because the very first paragraph has to be your contextualization in your thesis. So I'm fine with you doing it. Don't send it to me, okay? And don't send it to them either. All right, let me see. I'm looking at my notes here. And don't write the question either. Some of you out of habit, like I teach you in class, are writing the question on your paper and then answering it. Don't do that. Maybe on your scratch paper, but don't do it on the one you submit to them. The other thing is, some of you are writing your contextualization, skipping a line, then writing your thesis. Your thesis has to be in the introduction. If there's a space between your first paragraph and your thesis, you will not get credit for it. It has to be in one paragraph. Let me see what else. I may as well go ahead and get this out of the way. Oh, a lot of you are Christians. I understand, so am I. Don't state your personal opinion. Somebody in this class, every essay is right. What I find interesting, don't do that. And don't say, oh, the priest came in and found they were doing the devil's work. Do not take sides in this. I did the paragraph. And make sure you do paragraph breaks. So you can tell the difference between your introduction and your first paragraph. Somebody gave me one, it was just all writing down the page. They don't know how to grade that. There's no introduction or conclusion. They do not know how to do that. What else do I got? All right, so now let's go on. Now I'm going to make this short here. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but basically, so anyway, I got to give you something to write down, right? For your notes. Just write the word contextualization and write down what happened before, and then write down Mr. Russell's going to give us a chart to prove to me that you watched this video. Now, I'm going to write a thesis for you, and it's going to be ugly, and you're probably going to have to pause this thing 2 or 3 times and go back. Most of you have been very good about not saying this essay will discuss how things changed and how they didn't. Only a couple people did that, and they got a 0 for the thesis. Most of you are what they call digging down one level to give some facts. So I'm just going to make up a thesis here. So what's the question? Let's go on. All right. So evaluate. Okay. So here's my thesis. You ready to write this down? And you write on your paper thesis. Okay. Here we go. In the period 1500 to 1800, Christianity changed societies in Latin America by A, bringing a new religion and allowing people to convert to it, and B, not as much change because many people took their previous religions and incorporated them into their Christianity or buried them underneath, period. Now that's ugly. I should have done a better job. Did I say A and B? Make sure you put an A and a B. I hope you heard them. I don't know that I did A deep enough, but if you get one of these right, they're going to give you credit for the thesis. All right, so we'll clean that up a little bit later on. I'm trying to keep this video under 15 minutes. So it was ugly, and I should have done more with A, but you notice I did it in 10 seconds, and I made it up right then. So Christianity did make a big difference, but many people, in many ways, it didn't because people incorporated their other religions. All right, now I'm not going to go through all the documents. I'm just going to look at sourcing, okay? Look at this guy. Now, this is a priest writing. And as soon as you see this, there's a priest writing about Catholicism. Is he biased? You dang right he is. And now a lot of you did purpose. It's a manuscript written to aid priests. So I don't really like using purpose myself, but you guys were 100% right to do that. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So this guy was very critical. He said they're not really converting, they're hiding their religion. And so you would write all that, then you'd say, of course, this was from the point of view of a priest who is so dedicated to his Catholic Church, he may overstress how little they're converting. And also he may be stressing this because he's writing in a manuscript to aid other priests. So he may be more critical of the natives than he should have been. Now that's long and ugly, but that is caps. Let's do another one. Now here's a Native American talking about it. And but now look, he's testifying in a court case. I'm just going to guess that the Spanish are putting on the court case, that the Native Americans who are being dominated by the Spanish, they're basically slaves, aren't putting on a court case. So I would talk about what he said. He was also very negative. And then I would say, of course, it should be taken into account. This happened during a court case. And being as the trial was probably run by Spanish authorities who were Catholic, he probably wanted to be more critical of these native practices than maybe he should have been. All right. So that's the only two I wanted to do to show you how to do that. All right. Now, I told you in the last couple of minutes, I would show you how to write a DBQ and not finish, and rather than crying, score 7 points. Okay, so let's talk about how you do that. All right, so I would have done two groups in this, and I think there would have been 2 docs in one and 3 in the other. Okay, so, and I gotta remember there's only 5 documents. So in the introduction, you do contextualization and thesis. 1 point, check. 2nd point, check. Then you do your topic sentence, and you describe 2 documents. Okay, so you've already got 1 point, check. You got the thesis, check. Once you describe 2 documents, you get another check. That's 3 points. Then you argue at least 2 docs. There's your 4th point. Now, if in those 2 documents, let's say in both those documents, you analyze the sourcing, this is still the first body paragraph, the 2nd paragraph. If you analyze the sourcing for both those documents well, you get 2 more points. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we don't get that one, but we're going to get these 2 sourcing. So we're up to 6. And then I teach my kids, I hope you're being taught, at the end of your body paragraphs, write outside evidence. A lot of you forgot to write that, and go for it. And somebody did 4 or 5 of them. It was wonderful. Here's what I came up with. For the paragraph that says that they weren't really that much different, they incorporated their beliefs underneath. You would talk about, I would, and a couple of you did this, I would have talked about the Mexican Day of the Dead celebration, which is a big deal in Catholic Mexico, but it incorporates all these, what the Catholics would call pagan practices. A lot of you did that, and that's good. And then for the one that says Christianity did make a big difference, you would say Christianity came in and was so powerful, it eroded or destroyed many previous beliefs. Another point that could be made to show the big change was Cortez, when he came here, burned all the books he had because he wanted to dominate their culture. At least 2 students did that. So keep in mind, I think outside evidence is very hard. And so I would prefer for you to get the 3rd paragraph, because if you do it my way, you're going to get this point, this point, this point, this point, this point, and these 2 points, and you're going to have 7 by doing 3 paragraphs. And maybe you get the 8th and the 9th, maybe you don't. But I just showed you how it is possible. If you did an outside evidence at the end of the 2nd body paragraph, you would have 7 points with only 2 paragraphs. And write some of that stuff down.